It's really good to see you again. You ever meet someone who just seems to get it? Like they've figured out how to blend creativity and business and life in a way that actually makes sense. Well, that's Valentina Pardi-MacGregor. She started in fashion design, studied in Milan, and now she's running a beautiful home studio where she helps women over 40 reconnect with themselves through intimate portraiture. It's not just about taking these beautiful pictures, though. It's about focusing on confidence and storytelling and creating an experience that transforms how her clients see themselves. So in this episode, we talk about a whole bunch of topics, from social media struggles to the value of creative retreats, why building a supportive community is everything in this industry. And Valentina shares her approach to workshops, her big dreams of living part-time in Majorca, and how focusing on what you want rather than stressing about how to get there can open doors you never expected. I love this conversation because if you're looking for inspiration, a fresh perspective on running your creative business, or just a reminder that you can dream big and actually go for it, well, this is the one for you. Valentina always makes me smile, and I know by the end of this, you'll be smiling too. So on with the show. We haven't had a chance to catch up in forever.
I was going to say, since Phoenix, we were in Phoenix for that content creation, I think.
Oh, yeah, it was content curator. That's what it was, when we were in the same place at the same time. Yeah. Well, we have a lot to catch up on, it sounds like then. How have you been?
I've been great. I've been crazy busy, and it was so serendipitous to see, that you are so busy in your podcast, because I've had it as one of my goals to be a little bit more visible with my brand, and it's just felt like such a great fit. So I'm so glad to be here.
Being visible in the brand is, I think, something that I know we all are challenged with. We like to be behind the camera, not in front of it. What are you doing? Because I know it's a struggle for all of us.
Yeah, it is a struggle. And I really think it's almost generational. I think you and I are probably the same generation. And I find I do a lot of in-person networking, and I have no problem doing that. That is not a problem for me. But somehow the moment I'm in front of a camera, or I have to hear my own voice or anything like that, it's just like, it's so much more grating or nerve-wracking and makes me so much more self-conscious. So I've made it a point to just do it. And the more I get in my head about it, the more I go back to, it's not about me. It's about the service or the content or the information that I'm providing. It's not about me. But I think in part it's generational for us, because we didn't grow up with these devices in our faces. For millennials or, younger, they kind of got exposed to that relatively young. So they're okay with it. They don't, my kids actually enjoy taking terrible pictures of each other and then posting them. And I'm like, that's mortifying. Like, that's been part of their culture. So for us, it's such a brain thing that we just need to work on, because there's no way around it nowadays.
I find it really interesting that you bring that up, right? So the Gen X thing, right? I'm 51. There's this knowledge of the world existing before the internet. And now I get to see, over the past 25 years, how destructive it's kind of become, right? But it's the necessary evil. But that's my perspective, right? Like you said, teens, millennials, right? Everybody is so used to just being online and living life online that it really isn't as jarring to their internal workings, their psyche, to be putting yourself out there all the time. And it's just another communications channel. I think for those of us that might be a little bit older, we just struggle with, like, all right, I get it. It's cool. It's fun. I'm watching TikTok, but you're not going to see me dancing or in my kitchen in a negligee and doing dishes and hoping for a thirst trap. Like, no one wants to see any of that from me, right? So again, it comes back to
market for that.
Oh, there's a market, right? But I can't monetize it quick enough. I think there's always going to be that little bit of ickiness trying to do that. but the way past it is the service. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Are you doing anything in particular to kind of focus on that service piece?
Yeah, before I do a lot of on Instagram or
Yeah.
stories, just kind of I call it talking to my phone, and I really do visualize one of my clients. Like I think about one of my clients, and I'm just telling her about my day or telling her about this client that I had come in, and it connects with people. I get a lot of DMs saying, I love seeing you on there. You're so authentic and warm. And I think in part it is because I'm like, it's not about me. I'm just talking to my client. And so it does totally help. And yeah, not getting in our heads about that because it's not conducive for anyone. And essentially my goal is to grow my creativity, my brand, my ability to reach more women. And I can't do that if I don't get out of my own head. So it's not about me.
Do you find you get any good ideas from the networking meetings down there in Austin? Like, do you find that you might say something to you and you're like, oh, that'd make a great video. I should do something like that. Does that ever happen to you?
It's interesting to say that. I'm actually hosting for a networking group that I'm a part of a content day because so many of them are women our age that, again, get in their own heads about being
Yeah.
the voice. And so I've gone on all of their Instagrams and followed them as we do networking. And I've noticed none of them are the face of their brand. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you guys a day where you get to, for free, come into my studio and just use my studio with your phones to create content. I'll help guide you through it because to me, I'm like, guys, we need to just do, whatever we can to really represent our customers and for them to see us and like us and trust us and so forth. But it does take time to build that confidence. I'm still working on it. I mean, I still worry and listen to it and cringe and do all the things, but it's not about me. So, but yeah, that's probably the biggest thing I do is that whenever I am in a networking situation or a networking event, I think about that person's brand and how could that be represented either in video or in pictures. I don't really shoot video at all, but I think, if we're just using them for social media, our phones are plenty good enough. So, just how to better connect, they can connect with their customers from a visual standpoint. You and I are visual, we have visual brands, so it's much easier for us to be able to visualize that than for like a mechanic that is trying to grow their brand and they just have no idea. They're like, I don't know, I'll fix your car.
Right. Right. No, it is so true, right? We tend to overthink things, right? Make things a little bit more complicated than they need to be. However, the majority of folks don't care about what mic or light or camera you're using. They just hold their phone up and go for it. And then there's another class of folks that are intimidated even by that. And that's probably the larger group out of anybody. And so for you to be able to host this and give them your guidance, right? Now kind of you're overthinking all the ideas, all the lighting, all the composition things. They don't know anything. And you're kind of meeting in the middle to help them produce content for their brand. I think that's such a wonderful act of service for what you can do in your community and your network. And I'm blatantly ripping that off without a doubt.
Yay!
Yeah, no, the reason being,
Love that.
I love it because I've been trying to figure out how to get more people into the studio, right? You have a home studio, correct?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
connected to my house. So I'm limited. I've had to be a little bit more creative in how do I get people in my studio because I can't host 30, 40,
Right.
50 people events. Yeah, I just can't. It's a neighborhood, but I can host intimate gatherings. And so I created a calendar and each person selects their 30-minute time slot. That also means they get into my system. So now they get kind of my emails. So in a way, it opens them up to my studio, whether or not they become clients. That's not the point, but
Right.
it opens the door to a conversation that maybe I wouldn't have had. So, and for them, it's an opportunity to do what I'm kind of encouraged. Like I feel really empowered to help women our age do this because especially women, which is who I work with.
It's amazing because a lot of times it's stepping in front of the camera for the first time. It's just getting that permission to be yourself, getting that permission to be on screen, removing some of the obstacles because I know for me, I can have everything scripted out. I know exactly what the shot list is going to be. And then I still get in my own head about like, my hair is a mess, or I'm having a fat day, or why I haven't slept in a week and my eyes are down here. And then there's an excuse to not do it. It's the resistance that we always feel, right? That
Yeah, and
our resistance. And so
yeah.
outside of the content, you're helping people get past that just to get the ball rolling. And I love that. I love that.
And then
Gently pushing them into it.
yeah, to that, like I had one person today reach out to me and was like, I don't really know what kind of content I would create.
Yeah.
You know, she works with businesses kind of on saving them money. And I'm like, book your slot and I will help you. So I created a series of questions about their business that can help me figure out who their customer is. And then I can help guide them. It also helps them think differently from their customer's point of view. And then again, just get out of their own head. But also accountability, because once you book that slot, I'm expecting you here because otherwise someone else could have had that slot. So in a way, now you're coming in, and whether or not you like it, you'll be in front of the camera. So it's on their phone, so they have the option whether or not they're gonna post it. But at least it gets the ball rolling.
All right. So you're gonna treat me like one of your women that comes in. I own a small business. I make pottery mugs, and I want to be the face of my brand, but I have no idea where to start. You're advising me in this 30-minute crash session. Where do you start? What are some of the tips that you give to your clients or prospective clients or people that you're trying to help with the content? How do you pitch them on this in terms of getting them going? Where do they start?
First of all, I want them to think about who their client is, because I want them to have kind of that avatar for them to speak to. Who's been your ideal client? Have you had a client that you're like, oh, absolutely love that client. She's so happy with the end result, and she paid me a bunch of money, and everyone was happy walking away. We've all had those clients. So if they can visualize that, that will help. And it'll also help me kind of know who we're talking to. And then from there, I would probably tell her, okay, think of props that can help connect with that client and your business. So if you're bringing clay, if you're bringing, depending on your industry, if you're someone that's about saving people money, maybe you're bringing a calculator and a laptop,
Right.
Different props to kind of help connect those things. And then the next thing I would talk about is think about wardrobe, like bring a few options that can help make it look like 2 different days. So we are only booking 30-minute slots. So they have time for about 2 outfits, I would say, to get some real, a few variety. Like I'm creating different sets in the studio. And so these 2 wardrobe options, I tell them, think of a day that you're meeting with clients, so you're front facing, and then a day where maybe you're just like in a ponytail and in jeans because you're into your designer, you're talking to your contractors. So I've done that with clients repeatedly on branding shoots, but I never even thought like, oh my gosh, I should be doing that in my in-studio shots as well when we're creating like headshots and things like that. So that's what gave me the idea to start when we do this content day. I'm like, okay, this is good. This is going to help them. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see the results they get from that as well, and how much more confident or comfortable they feel afterwards, like getting in front of the camera and doing it themselves. Like, yes, would I love for them all to book a branding shoot and become my clients? Absolutely. But also a lot of small business owners are just starting out. They don't have thousands of dollars to spend on portraits. So how can I kind of help them, but not necessarily expect them to become my clients? So I'm excited about it.
Do you give them homework or anything, or set up a second time to come back? Like, hey, you did great today, but I know we didn't accomplish everything. So here's your homework. Do these couple of things and then come in with a better script or come in with some more ideas. Do you give them homework, or do you just kind of send them on their way and say, vaya con Dios? And I wish you the best.
I haven't thought it through, Matt. Now you're making me think about it. I'm giving them homework before they come in, so I don't know. But I definitely I'm going to create a questionnaire for like, what could have been better? What do you feel like you got out of it versus not? And I think that'll help guide, I guess, the next time, because this is literally the first time I'm doing this. So I'm excited to see, and then I'll be like, well, my friend Matt says I should get you homework. So.
Well, the only reason I ask is I do video, right? And a lot of people come to me, photographers, civilians, right? I can call them civilians, photographers, civilians, other video folks come to me and ask me about either editing or how do I film this or what mics do I use or what cameras do I use or lights and all that sort of stuff. And I'm an open book. I'll tell anybody anything. But I've never really packaged it up like this. I've never thought about it, right? I'm just very reactive because it's something that I do and I just know the stuff.
Right.
So, it never occurs to me to think that people would be into something like this. So yeah, no, if you want to develop this, my brain is going haywire right now. And I'm like, oh, I can make this big thing for you. And this is where I just need to slow down, just hear how it goes first. Yeah.
We're going to need a separate Zoom call for that, I think.
This is my brain. This is my brain. I hear one good idea and then suddenly it's an entire campaign and, documents and websites, and I need help. I need a lot of help.
I don't know if you've ever had this conversation with other creatives, but I am super curious. So I did not sleep well at all the night before last because this happened. Like I had all these ideas going through my brain and I just couldn't shut them off. So I was like, I could do this with that. And then I got to create like all the Canva visuals for that. And then what about this other thing? And I need to do all the social media stuff for that. When I was young, I had studied fashion design. For that, I could just stay up and just like, I had roommates, but like nobody cared. We were just all on weird schedules because we're, 20. And so, and we would stay up and we'd stay till 3, 4 a.m. And I feel like as creatives, that's such a common thing. Like we think a lot of creativity comes at night. But now, like I have teenage kids a teenage daughter that I need to take to school. I have, obviously clients that I might be meeting with at 9 a.m. And I have a husband that sits next to me who would probably kill me if I did any of that. Like, how do we carve out that time to be creative? How do you do it? I'm curious.
I don't have a husband that sleeps next to me and I don't have teenage kids. So for me, I don't have any of the, I guess, human restrictions, right? Which is a good and a bad thing. Because I can stay up till 4 a.m. if I want. I don't. I'm usually in bed by like 7:30 because old guy. But I think for me, I never really consider work.
Yeah.
When I was corporate, work was a grind and I was doing it. And then I had my separate life. Since I found photography, so now 13, 14 years ago, I've never felt like work is work. It just kind of fits into my life and I'm always doing something, but it never feels like I'm working. I think when I'm at a beach or if I'm mountain biking, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much I have been working, but it just never feels that way, right? Because the ideas are incessant. The possibilities are endless. The opportunities are whatever you want to create. So I just keep legal pads and brain maps full of ideas. I've got a journal around here somewhere that says on the front, like, ideas for a highly caffeinated introvert. It's where I just jot down all of my crazy things. And sometimes it's just a few words, content creation day for civilians, right? Might be something like that. And then it sits there in the book. And then whenever I'm like, oh, I have tons of free time, I'll go back and look at that.
I mean, it's a specific book catered to just ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because it's separate from all my work notes. And whenever I have that, it's this act of writing the thing down into this journal. And so I've got notebooks and journals and stuff everywhere. Sometimes those ideas just go into the ether. And I'll write them down and then I'll go back a couple of days later. I was just like, how high was I when I thought of that? Because there's no way that was a good idea. I think for me, it's the only way that I can control the chaos in my head.
Yeah.
And once I purge it out and I get the idea out, then it kind of lives on its own. It either survives or it doesn't. I've found that the best ideas are the ones that I can't stop thinking about. And whether it's small or large, and the large ones, become a little bit intimidating because it's a longer process and a lot more detail. And so, yeah, that's how I do it. I just write everything down. And then usually about once a month, I take all the random Post-it notes and legal pads and I transfer it to digital notes on my phone or a brain map or something so that I can start to see visually what I have in front of me.
Yeah.
I have hundreds of tasks that I can do, but it's just too much.
Yes, same. And I have a really bad habit of keeping like 10 of these little like
Yeah.
notes that then have make no sense. And then I go back and read and I'm like, what was that notes from? Like what? I don't even know. That's a good tip. I like the creating different, yeah, like a
It's,
notebook for ideas and then
the hard part is you lose the journal and then you start writing in another journal. And now you've got 37 journals with the first 4 pages written in and nothing else in the rest of the journal,
yeah.
right? So it is what it is. Let's talk a little bit about where you started. I had no idea you were part Argentinian. I knew you were Italian. I knew you had lived in Italy. I didn't realize you had studied in Milan doing, was it fashion design? Was it like a graphic design thing? Tell me a little bit about that and then how that went from whatever you were studying into photography and having a home studio. I want people to understand that the journey is never from A to B a straight line. And I'd love to hear, we never really got into this before. So I'd love to hear kind of how you found your way into this weird little world that we live in.
Yeah, it's never linear. I like to think about that now that I have, a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old because it's a little stressful. So my parents are both Argentinian. I was born in Argentina when they were moving from Italy to Venezuela. So I was actually born in Argentina, but we moved immediately after when I was 3 months old to Venezuela. So I was raised in Venezuela until I was 12 years old. And then we moved to Texas. My parents still live here as well. And so we moved to Texas. And when I was 18, they always used to speak Italian in the house to each other when they didn't want us to understand. We spoke Spanish in my house and it infuriated me. So I was like, I'm going to learn Italian. It's like this is BS. Like, what is this secret language you guys get to have? No. And so I wanted to study fashion. And at the time it was the 90s. I'm 47. So I graduated in 96 and at the time New York was dangerous. And I really wanted to go to New York. My mom said, absolutely no, it's so dangerous. So, but you can go to Milan because I have a friend that lives in Milan from the days that they used to live there. And so anyway, so I went for 3 years to study fashion design. And it turned out at the time I didn't know it. I thought I was compromising. But it was actually the best fashion design school in the country outside of Central St. Martin's, or in the world, sorry, outside of Central St. Martin's in London. It's Istituto Marangoni in Milan. And it's still, now it has, I don't know, 7 other schools all over the world, Tokyo and Miami and New York and but at the time it was the only one. And it was an amazing experience. I was there for 3 years, obviously learned Italian. So now it's our secret language. They cannot speak it without or behind my back. And I'm actually more fluent than them. But yeah, it was amazing. It was, I moved back and I started working for a company that did, so I did that product development for an athleisure company.
Sure.
And because it was a smaller company, they needed help with every aspect. So like from obviously I did their product development, their sizing, their everything, and then they needed help with the shoots. And so I would get involved with helping with a shoot. And we had this makeshift photographer that somebody had trained in-house. And I just had no eye for it. And so I kept helping him until I was like, here, let me use the camera. And then I was helping with sitting next to him while he was doing Photoshop. So then I taught myself Photoshop. And that's kind of how I realized, like, wow, I really actually like this part way more than designing the clothes and thinking of the patterns and all of that. So yeah, so that's kind of how I started playing around with the camera.
How did it spark the creativity in you? Looking at everything that goes into a line of styles that you're creating, it's not as creative really as people would think it is, right? Because it's more of a manufacturing and logistics and operations role than it is, the head in the clouds designer couture type of role. So when you're in that and you're feeling that lack of creativity, right? And you kind of set your sights on photography. What was the thing that really stuck out to you? Was it the images? Was it the process? Was it the end result? Was it the, pre-production, post-production? What was the thing that really got you going to really look at photography seriously?
So I think I think when I was designing the clothes, that was obviously the most fun part of that whole process that you're
Sure.
describing. And it is true in this country, design is not what it is like in Italy, where that's all you do. You just design. There's a whole different. And here it's a little bit more encompassing many, many roles. So when I was doing that, when I was designing the clothes, when we would select the fabrics, when we would look at the fit and all of the things, like I just have this vision of what those clothes should look like in a magazine. Like I could just visualize that. I used to devour fashion magazines, so I just could see that how it should be portrayed. And so I guess that's the aspect that translated so perfectly to photography and to what I do now. That when I have a client come in and when I see the clothes that they brought, I can very quickly see, okay, I know exactly how we're going to shoot this, where and how I'm going to pose them, where we're going to, but that whole connection, I didn't see it at the time, but it was, whenever we were in the photo shoot, I was like, no, this can't be shot like this. It has to be, it has to be in this setting, or it has to be, with this kind of body. Or the photographer was like, okay, lady, like just, but I think that became really obvious to me, that it was just the visual, for me, it was just the visual aspect of that wardrobe, that item of clothing, and how it should be represented so that a client could see it and see herself in it. And I think of that whenever I have a client come in, that I'm like, how does she want to see herself in these pictures, or in these, items of clothing, or lack thereof?
I was wondering how you brought that over into your client work. I was wondering what you carried over into that and what perspective it gave you. And it sounds like it gave you a little bit of empathy for your clients so that you can kind of understand what they're going through. It gave you breadth of understanding that there's more than just one type of body out there. So
Yeah.
as people come into your home, do you find that there are things that are common between all of your clients that you can pull from your past and give to them as a gift of your creativity? Meaning you're able to pose them or do set design or do clothing design, right? Wardrobe consultations, whatever it might be. What do you think you carry over most into your clients?
I think the biggest carryover is probably confidence.
Yeah.
It's kind of a crazy thing, but a lot of clients that come in, they see pictures of, or, some of the visuals, some of the pictures that they see, whether it's on my social media or on my website, and they really connect with how confident, or how, just like natural it looks and feels. And I explain to them, every single woman, and I do actually still do a styling consultation, which I know so many photographers have kind of removed from their workflow. I do it on Zoom now, but I think it's so valuable, because my clients are still so nervous about their shoot. They're so uncertain. They're not sure what to bring. And even if it's for lingerie, like, it matters, because you're giving them that confidence of like, absolutely, that's going to look amazing. I can totally see how that, and they feel that confidence coming from me. So then they trust me that much more. And so when they come into the studio full of nerves, because, that's probably the most common thing for all of us, right? Very few people are super confident getting their picture taken. So when they come in and they're so nervous, and they're not, they're putting this stuff. Remember, we talked about this, and I'm like, I know, I remember that. I had this perfect set design. Like, I remember exactly how we're going to shoot that. So they get that confidence from me, and it, it does translate to a better experience for them. They let go. They're able to trust, because, we all have gotten, well, if you're a photographer, like, you get those clients that are really tense. And that's probably the hardest, when they don't give you anything. Like, they just don't opening up. I had a client not long ago be like that, and she was so sweet, so great, but she's not opening up until about the last 30 minutes of the shoot. So my shoots are about an hour and a half, and it just took that much longer with her, but I did the exact same process. But I don't think I've ever had someone that I can't connect with. And I think that's why, like, being able, whether it's my international travels, being able to, having to move around, and, kind of, I would change accents in Spanish. Like, people still think it's crazy that I can switch from Argentinian, Venezuelan, or Mexican accent just by hearing someone else speak it, because it's that adapting to your surroundings and making others comfortable. That, I don't know. It's definitely a skill I've worked through.
Yeah, the connection thing is really the most important part I think, for any portrait photographer. And it doesn't have to be a deep, soulful connection. You don't have to be lifelong friends at the end of it or anything like that. But there is a level of empathy and common ground that you search for. And sometimes you get it like that. And then, I was similar. I had a client the other day that I just could not connect with. She was wonderful and sweet, and we created beautiful photos. But there's this weird thing in me that if I don't get a little bit of that connection, I start to doubt myself. Did I say
Yeah.
something wrong? Am I doing something wrong? And I'm sure on their end, if they don't feel connected to me, they're feeling, too directed, or they might be more intimidated or nervous, no matter how much I try to disarm that. So that connection point, I find, I don't like to try to do in the studio. I do it beforehand, right? The initial phone call, all the prep, education. How much of that do you emphasize with your clients? How much are you talking to them before the shoot, planning all this out? Does it get in depth, or do you give them the basics, they show up, and then you wing it from there?
No, I do a phone call for booking the shoot. I don't ever book a client. Again, I'm in by, they're coming into my home. So I
Sure.
want to make sure that this is a real person. So they we talk on the phone and then we book the styling session and so forth. But I think you definitely get a feel even on a phone call. Like I love a good old 90s phone call. That's what I call them now because millennials don't like to be on the phone, but I'm like, it's a thing, guys. Like, it's good for us.
You got to do it, and it's really hard. I've definitely slid into it's just easier to text or send an email. So I want to talk a little bit about having a home studio. I do not, and it's something I've always considered, either building a separate building on my property. I'm super rural, so I have like some acreage. So I was going to build a building or bring them into my home. I know with costs these days, the economy being the way it is, a lot of folks are closing their studios and doing something in the home, or renting hotel rooms, or just renting a studio on a daily basis, whatever it might be. I want to ask you a couple of questions about this. One, why your house versus getting a small space or a studio? And then two, talk me through some of the things that I wouldn't consider when you have home, like inviting people into the home. What do you do, or I should say, where are your concerns with a home studio that someone might not think about after you've been doing this for so long?
Yeah. So the first question, like, why was I tried everything. So I started studio photography out of my house when I away from chasing children around in parks. And and I started learning kind of that style of working with women in my husband's super supportive. So we moved ourselves into the guest room. We were like, to have a guest room. And so we moved ourselves into the guest room, and I was shooting in at the time would have been our master bedroom, and because I had the best lighting in the house. So that master bedroom was upstairs, but I hated that I had to kind of drag all my clients through my whole house. We have two big dogs and, hiding things that the kids left and so forth. So that was one. And once it was clear to me that I could be profitable doing this and I was starting to make money. I decided and I reached out to a photographer that was in my area and I was like, hey, any chance you're going to share your studio? And she actually said, absolutely, I would love that. So we paid half the rent. I paid half the rent, and it was a retail space. So it was great because it was obviously super accessible. It was handicap and all the things that you want, and had a private bathroom and everything. And it had great lighting. However, it was retail. So it was totally exposed. So I had started shooting my over 40 campaign at the time. It was mostly shooting a strobe, but I had started transitioning into doing a little more boudoir with some of my clients. And I found that. So I put kind of a wall of curtains, but you'd still get the odd person outside. Just felt very not boutique experience. So I found a separate place that was an office space, and that was great, but I had very low ceilings. So the retail space had high ceilings, great lighting, no privacy. And once I was in the office space, I realized it has lower ceilings. Lighting was good and it was more private, but again, it just felt more cold. So that was when we actually spoke to one of our closest friends as an architect, and I asked him, like, what do you think? We bought our house and very cheap. We bought it as a foreclosure 9 years ago, and we have completely gutted this house ourselves mostly. So, and we're not afraid of the little elbow grease. So we're like, okay, we had a contractor come out with us, and it made sense. I'm like, the value of the property will go up. We actually added 1,400 square feet of space. 800 is studio only.
Wow.
The rest is like our monster. So we took advantage of it. Like, okay, we are in Texas. Everything's bigger here. And the house was not. So we could make it bigger. And we did. But yeah, it's been great. There's definitely been things that have been an adjustment. Parking was a thing. When we did this addition, we added a new driveway, but we kept a piece of the old driveway. So I have one parking spot dedicated to and anyone that has a studio in a downtown area of any city would probably laugh at me for, because I have one dedicated spot, and then I have my makeup artist kind of park on the street. And that's always a challenge if I host events or if I host anything, that I have kind of a cap of like 12 invites, 12 to 15 people at a time, because otherwise the cars get out of control. Everyone comes in a separate car in Texas. So, and yeah, no one carpools here.
No
And
carpooling.
no, and everyone drives huge trucks. So like we're taking up all the space. And yeah, so there was that. There was obviously the sense of privacy. So I don't have my location listed really anywhere. I have it as like Wade, Texas, which is the outskirts of Austin where I am, but I don't have it as I don't have the actual address. So that was important to me. So that was one thing to think about. And then separating the spaces, I have an accessible entrance for my clients that is completely separate from the house. So it has its own entrance. It has its own AC, because that was again another, we wanted to make sure that we could turn it off if we didn't need the air conditioning. And then also, can I access it through the house? I didn't want to have to leave the house to come out back in. Most of the time here it's over 100 degrees. So I was like, I don't want to have to go outside if I don't have to. So it is connected to the house. And the thought of later, like we kept looking at our house, it has to make sense to be able to for resale value. And so this space could be converted very easily into 2 other bedrooms. So if somebody wanted to come and partition it and, convert it into something else, it very well could be. And it really did add value to our property because we added an extra bedroom and so forth as a meeting. So yeah, my studio is upstairs. So it's just so nice because I have 12 vaulted ceilings. They're 12 feet high, and I have 6 windows, and one of them is giant. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a real luxury. I mean, I was able to design it from scratch, and then we did a lot of the finish out. My husband installed the windows. So yeah, it's been a labor of love.
It's a dream, really, because there's so many folks that don't have access to a space like that and aren't fortunate enough to have it in their home. And you didn't even have it in your home to begin with, but you were able to kind of dream it up and build it out and have exactly what you want. It's such a dream. A lot of times, so many photographers are just trying to adapt to their space rather than having a space that shoots similar to their style, right? So if you want that intimacy, but you're stuck in a storefront, it doesn't feel right. And it sounds like you've been able to craft this dream studio for yourself where you're going in and it's comfortable and your clients are comfortable and it's separate from your family and you've got the security. I'm just ticking the boxes going, oh, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
Honestly, it's not lost on me every single day when I
Yeah,
with my coffee, like, and I go up the stairs and I connect, go through the house
sure.
in my work, and it's no loss on me. I know I'm very lucky. I do have this thing, they call it manifesting now, but I used to call it obsessing. Like when we bought this property, like I visualized this house immediately. I visualized like this addition that it could be. At the time, I didn't see it as a studio, but I knew I wanted us to have at some point a swimming pool. Like these are all things that I just obsess over and I kind of create these visuals in my head. And yeah, and they all start happening little by little. I just never let it go until it does. I will say, like, for us, there was a lot of things that happened appropriately. Like, our value, we bought our house really
Sure.
cheap.
Sure.
We were able, because we got our house really cheap, we were able to, remortgage, and
Sure.
and use that equity towards the addition. So it was not a financial drain for us. And also, there's something to be said also about being limited. Like, I am very spoiled, but because I'm very spoiled, it could be very easy to get very lazy. It's having limitations in your studio, whether it's lack of light or, low ceilings. All those things, like in the different studios that I was in, really also helped me adapt and figure shit out. What are the limitations that I'm comfortable with? And what are the ones that are making me uncomfortable? And also, why am I uncomfortable? Like, what about is making me uncomfortable? And is that somewhere I need to stretch myself? And that's a good thing as well as a creative. So if people are not in a position, if you're not in a position to do that, know that there's also great value in that as well,
Y-
because you're having to do things that I'm not even trying. So
It was going to be a question of mine of how you balance client work, business, your day-to-day, got to make some money, business versus the personal projects and the art. Do you find that having a studio in your home, you're able to do that the same way that you would if you had a studio somewhere else? And it might sound like a pretty dumb question, but I find that when I'm here at home, and again, don't have a home studio, I've got my studio downtown. I find that when I'm home, I like to be at home. Forget about what I said at the beginning, which is like I'm working 24/7. I do have some limits, but when I'm here, I don't really do a lot of personal work. Did you find that there was any sort of shift between how much personal work you did versus regular business work when you have a home studio? Or do you produce just as much being at home?
Okay, so I'm actually very guilty of just working.
Yeah.
I'm very guilty of just feeling like, is this going to give me any results or anything that's going to help move the needle? Because I have been so focused now on like moving the needle for the last couple of years. So I'm very guilty of like, and I do this with everything in my life. I'm not a person that just does things for the joy of it. Reading creative books helps me because it reminds me that I need to just let things be and just do things for the sake of doing things. And my daughter is now painting and she's 18 and she paints for fun. And a lot of times she'll paint something and I'm like, oh, what is that for? And she's like, well, I just wanted to paint it. But I'm like, are you going to do anything with it? Like, for some reason, I don't know, again, if it's generational, but I feel like there has to be a reason why you're got to do something productive with that. Like, what was the point otherwise? But that's totally my flaw. So I have to schedule it, and I'm not as good about doing that. And like cancel everything and like leave my phone downstairs and like anybody, I have all the distractions that we all do from being busy and notifications and things that, appointments. And yeah, I definitely need to get better about it. But I think once I'm up here, I'm in like, okay, how else can I create in here? And it's not been so much for just fun.
What do you find that you're doing more these days, right? I know you do boudoir, I know you do some branding work. What do you find that you're doing more of these days? And where does your heart lie? I know for me, I've been doing a lot more headshots lately. I'm not going to write on my gravestone, amazing headshot photographer, because my heart's not there, but it keeps the business running. Is there a place where your heart really lies? Like when you get a client that comes in and says, I need to do an over 40 boudoir shoot. You're like, girl, I got you.
Yeah.
Where is it that your heart lies? Is it boudoir?
That's it. You nailed it. So it's hard to kind of name it boudoir alone because and it's women over 40 that come to me that are something happens to women when we turn 40. Like we've been hard on ourselves for many, many years, decades. From the moment we're teenagers where we're comparing ourselves to our friends and we're never skinny enough, we're never tall enough, we're never pretty enough, our hair is never right, and all those things. And then we hit 40 and something happens where you're like, why have I cared? Like, why, what am I? And you just let go of all of that and you start not caring and just you're like, I don't give a fuck now. Like, I just want to enter this phase in my life. And a lot of us have at this point either had successful careers or focused on our children or our spouses. We give so much to others And that's kind of, I think that's just a woman's, like, that's just what women tend to do. And we want to give back to ourselves in our 40s. Like, we just kind of, something clicks and we're like, no, like, I've not done anything for me in a long time. And so for me to be able to give this woman the space and the, like, guidance and the everything to, for her to allow herself that experience, this experience, to be willing to spend the money on herself and kind of like not have to apologize for it nor feel like she has to explain it to anyone, and then to give her that experience of like, oh my gosh, I felt amazing. Like, I just got a text while we were chatting about from my client yesterday. I was like, I'm still reeling from yesterday. Like, she hasn't even seen her pictures, but it's just like, that to me is everything. She's 52 years old and she's never done anything like this. And a lot of them come after a hard divorce or beating breast cancer, losing a child. Like, these are all women that I've connected or that have been my clients. And something happens that you want to see yourself again. And you really want to remember that badass that you were in your 20s that you didn't appreciate, and connect with that again and remember who you are. So it's, yeah, it's super. That's definitely where my heart sinks. So yeah, we make cool pictures, but it's like, gosh, giving them that time, that experience, that like freedom to be and to be seen, and when they trust me enough to really, really do it. Like, I've had clients that dance here in the studio because that's what they did when they were in their late teens, and they just connect with music in that way. I've had clients bring instruments, or that's so special to me. So yeah, the clothes are optional, but that's it's not just about creating beautiful, sexy pictures. I mean, that's kind of the byproduct of that, of really connecting with that woman that they are really still inside. It's just been sometimes buried a little bit.
Yeah. I think that happens with a lot of things. Life just kind of takes over. There's a lot of photographers down where you are. How are you differentiating yourself from other boudoir photographers, from other portrait photographers, right? So in a crowded market like Austin, I've got to believe with the success that you've had, that there is something that you do that differentiates you, that is a magnetic part of your business, that people see something, whether it's in the connection that they see in the photos, whether it's your process. What do you think it is that differentiates you from the other photographers in the area?
I mean, I really don't know. I don't know what everybody else is doing, and maybe that helps me. And
Yeah,
I just do what I think feels right, and I just get out and I do network a lot. And I think that when you connect with someone on a personal level, like you meet them in person and you know them in person, you get a different feel. So the person that I might attract will be very different from the person that maybe Felicia Reed will attract.
sure,
I love, and she's a dear
sure.
friend, but it's I'm not checking to see what she's doing to see if I should be doing. It's just not. That's just not. I think for any creative, that's like such a downward loop, like a downward spiral that you can get into. But I don't do that. I do follow people that inspire me, that I think that I could, just like that help me see the world differently or think differently, whether it's about my business or about business in general or about being creative. But I don't know. I don't know. I just try to focus on what I'm doing and to be myself and really authentic with people. And I'm sure there's people that don't like me and have not booked with me and booked elsewhere, and that's okay. Yeah.
And it is. And I think that's the most probably honest answer that you can give, and probably one of the most balanced answers of I just don't pay attention, which is great. And I wanted to hear what you were going to say, because there are so many, especially photographers that are starting out, any creative that's starting out, forget about just photography, but just any creative industry. A lot of times when we're starting, we're looking around. What is this person doing? What are they charging? How are they getting their clients, right? And we feel we have to do it that way. And we get trapped into these cycles and habits that, all right, well, now I'm here, but oh, they've leveled up over here. Now I've got to keep up with them. And it's a very ego-based thing, but it's easy to get into, especially in smaller markets. My guess is that in larger markets, I don't live in one, but my guess is in larger markets, there are so many folks that it's impossible to try to compare yourself to everybody. And it's probably more destructive to try to do something like that than to just do you, just put your voice out there, and you're going to attract the clients with the service, with your personality, with being the face of your brand, letting people connect to
Right.
you. asynchronously. So I think it was an interesting question because from market to market, I tend to hear certain things. Big markets, I don't care. Right? There's enough room for everybody. Smaller markets is this person is doing mini sessions for $125, and how do I compete with that? Right. And you get caught up in some of the things, losing sight of your own business and why you're doing the art thing in the first place. So great answer.
Thank you. I do find it was a good question. I find that I've always followed people that really inspire me with
And
how they work, both in their business and in their, their end results, like their photography. And that has helped trigger. And I definitely did the comparison game early on, but in that way, like more to learn, like what else could I be doing? How else? And there were some things that I picked up that I tried and then quickly was like, that's just not me.
yeah.
I can't, that's not me. That's not who I am. That doesn't work for me. For some people, it really works just like booking online and,
Mhm.
just through email, and they never even talk to their clients until they walk in the door. I could not do that. To me, that was just so weird because I'm like, I struggled with that if I was the one booking, if I was the client. So I always have put myself, since I am my own client, in that way. Like my avatar is women like me. So I look at that, and I think that for anyone starting out, like that is a big part of it. You're gonna compare, but compare to learn and to try different things rather than to, I don't know, like even if you compare with people that are not in your market. I was told not long ago that there's like Austin has one of the largest amount of boudoir photographers. And I'm like, really? I had no clue. I had no clue. And honestly, I really have never, I still haven't looked that up, but I'm sure it's true.
No one wants to wear clothes. It's just too hot down there. It's easier to take them off. Take my picture. I'm just sweaty. Who's inspiring you these days?
Oh my gosh. There is a photographer and in Italy that I've kind of really started following not long ago that I'm really inspired by. His name is Vincent Peters, I believe. Yeah, Vincent Peters. And I'm just in awe of his work. There is, oh gosh, I'm inspired by a lot of the women in my network that are building businesses and doing it with children on their laps and, like babies at their hips and a toddler pulling on their leg. And I just think it's amazing. And I'm inspired by my husband as well. He's one of the most consistently hardworking people I've ever met. So I always think like, what would he be doing?
What is it? You're
Like my what would Jesus do? He's from Scotland. His name is Ian, but he's a physical therapist, and he just works. And then we in the weekends we always have projects or things we're finishing around the house, and he is like wakes up in the morning and just gets on it. And I'm like, gosh, that work ethic is incredible. So yeah, he does inspire me because there's I'm like I just want to relax, and he's outside building a deck. I'm like,
See, there's the comparison. Stop comparing yourself to your husband.
that's true.
What
He loves him. That's just his character. He can't help it.
what are you doing for fun?
What am I doing for fun? I am looking to book a trip. Right now, we are going to be going to my husband's running the marathon, the California, I forget which one it's called. It's the Big Sur. That's the one, the marathon in Big Sur.
Wow.
So he's running that. So we're taking a weekend, like a long weekend away. For me, it's like I'll be at the spa, but he'll be running a marathon. So that'll be fun. And I'm actually trying to book a long weekend with a few photographers, friends that we have in common, kind of as a little like retreats, kind of not a mastermind because it's just friends and we
Sure.
try to like talk shop, but also have fun and maybe shoot each other and travel. And so we're trying to figure that out. And lastly, I'm actually planning a couple of workshops in my studio. So I'm super excited about that. I'm actually bringing in other photographers to teach.
So you're hosting.
I'm hosting, exactly. I hosted Cara Marie last year.
Unbelievable. She's incredible.
She is incredible. And she's been a big source of inspiration always for me since I found her. And she's shot quite a few of my branding pictures that I use all the time. But I was lucky enough to host her fine art boudoir fine art workshop last year. And this year I'm looking at hosting an underwater workshop with a photographer that is a dear friend out of LA. And then we'll see after that. I'm looking to do another one. So yeah, I'm excited. Those are fun for me. That feels because I get to host and I love hosting friends and family. That's what that feels like, but in a creative. And yeah.
I've found that a lot of photographers in our circles, we're starting to gravitate more towards these just a bunch of friends getting together rather than traveling the world and going to a workshop and trying to learn more techniques. I found that I was going on some of those trips just to meet the people and just to hang out with new friends. But now I'm much more in line with what you're doing, which is let's just get a bunch of us together and rent a big Airbnb somewhere and just be creative and learn from each other rather than it being a more structured type of retreat. It's really just a hangout. And I love that because it gives me that sense of community that I don't necessarily get on a daily basis with other driven creatives and ambitious business owners. And I'm not even saying all photographers, it could be any artists, right? Copywriters, videographers, anything. I'm just finding that these smaller pop-up groups are starting to happen. And I love that because it's a chance for all of us to experience different studios and go to different places without the overhang of a conference or a workshop or, I have to
Yeah.
spend all this money and go out of country and whatever it is. I think I'm seeing more of these intimate gatherings of friends that
Yeah.
I haven't really seen in the past. And I don't know if that's
Yeah.
because the era of the big conference is starting to decline, or people are burned out on workshops, or people just don't have the cash to do what they want to do or what they've done in the past. So I love the way you're thinking. And again, you're one step ahead of me. I keep looking at how do I bring people into the studio to experience a smaller workshop, right? And again, I'm back to your content creation day. I'm ripping that off blatantly. I'll say it yet again. Being where I am, fall is a wonderful time. I was thinking about renting a big ski house up here as the seasons change, bringing people out, going to Acadia National Park, right? Going up into the mountains, all these different places in Maine that are just kind of undiscovered for the rest of the country. I'd love to bring some folks out and just have that type of hang without it being so formal.
And I think it takes away the pressure off of you or,
Totally.
if you're the one kind of organizing it, takes a lot of the pressure. You're literally just there to hang out. And the
Yeah.
expectations are such that we're just hanging out and we're going to create together. And we're
Right.
but and I think there's more room for creativity when that expectation is removed of like, oh, I put in money, so how is this, or is it organized well? Is the food good? Like there's just so many variables that in the end, the more you pay, the higher the expectation of everything being a certain way. Whereas if you're just like, well, I'm just booking this trip and all it cost me was, my cost, then and you're like, whatever, I don't care what I eat. I'll eat a sandwich and it's all good. And I love that. I love that. Let me know if you do that in me.
I will. No, absolutely. Do you feel like you create well in that environment? Sometimes I do. I have produced some of my best work when I'm at kind of casual workshop or there's really no pressure to create or learn. It's just really that artistic hangout. I've done some of the best work that I've ever shot in those environments. Do you feel like you do well, or do you just get caught up in the hangout and it's more of an interpersonal connection that you get more satisfaction from?
Oh, I'm probably 50-50. Like, I definitely love it because I get to have that interpersonal connection, with either friends or new friends. But I think some of those conversations can spark some of that creativity to then be like, oh, now you're making me think this. Like, how about we do this tomorrow? Like, would you be up for being my model? Or, and I think as creatives, we're much more up for like, oh, sure, whatever,
Right.
than other, I don't know. I think both. I think I could do both, and I think I don't get caught up in one too much that the other is neglected. I think I have a fairly good balance of wanting to connect with people, but also ooh, now I've got all these ideas that I just need to make happen. And I've loved some of the workshops that I've gone on that were smaller for that reason, and made some of my closest friends from that, including, we were talking about our friend Tina, but compared to some of the big other conferences, I've loved the conferences, but once I tried like the shootout situation, like that just was not for me. That was, I've not created any work that I feel like I could even show in. I mean, I can show it and it's beautiful, but it's not representative of what I create in my studio, what I want to create. So it's not.
I found a lot of people tell me the same thing, especially more experienced photographers, maybe advanced folks that have been doing this a while and have developed their own style, their own voice. They've been either running a business or just being a photographer and having a certain style. That conferences, whether it's shooting bays that are formally set up or, little photo walks or whatever it is, that the more experienced folks that are there don't necessarily participate as much just because they're not getting from it what they would be able to, season to their taste. They can't salt and pepper the lights, right? The way that they might want to because everything's been set up. There's absolutely a place for it. And believe me, it's been a monumental task for these conferences to do that, modeling and lighting and all that, right? It's monumental, the amount of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
And there's a huge benefit from it. But I found, especially over the past couple of years, that I'm shooting less and less in those bays only because this isn't my clientele. It's not the style that I shoot in. It's not the type of connection that I like to make with the model. And I'm creating things that, quite frankly, everybody else at that conference is going to have. And
exactly.
I've always got this thing in me. I don't know if you have it, but I want to be different in whatever way that I can. If everyone is shooting a model with the same lighting setup, I want to shut one light off. I want to, do something so different that it looks unique, that it looks individual. Do you find that you gravitate towards anything like that? Or do you not even participate and you're just like, you know what, I'll just make my own shit at all?
Yeah, I kind of didn't participate in the last kind of few conferences like that. I just kind of, and I, don't get me wrong, for creating a portfolio, when I first started doing studio, that was so helpful. But once I kind of, knew what I was doing a little bit more, and I just felt, I don't know, I'm kind of a control freak. I'm a Scorpio. So
Are you really?
Has anything to do with it? But I am a little bit of a control freak, and I just have a hard time when I'm like, and not only a control freak, but a little bit of issues with authorities. So it's like someone telling me this is how it needs to be done. It needs to stay this way. I'm like,
that's a Gen X thing. I'm telling you, it's a Gen X thing. Fuck the man. Like, I want nothing to do with whatever you tell me. I'm doing the exact opposite because I will not be controlled. I was raised a feral kid in the woods. No one's going to tell me what to do.
Oh my God. I was homeschooled for 10 years before I really got into photography. And I'm always asked, like, why did you start homeschooling? And I'm like, because I didn't like someone telling me what time I needed to wake up my 6-year-old, 5-year-old and drag them out of bed and like the hot and the cold and all things.
Right.
So, but to me, it was like that very same reason. I just don't tell me what to do and how to do it and what I'm for. So, yeah.
I love that. There's part of that confidence, right? And that comes through with clients that might be a little bit younger and don't have that attitude yet, because believe me, it's coming. It's coming. You're going to hit 35, 40, and then suddenly it's zero given, right? You're just kind of, like you were saying earlier, you just kind of get to this point, you wake up and you go, no one's going to tell me what to do. No one's going to tell me how to feel. I'm going to feel about myself the way that I want to, right? I love that empower. I don't know when it happened for me. I think it was in my early 40s, maybe my mid 40s, that I finally got to the point where I was just like, yeah, I'm not listening to anybody else. I'm going to ride this ride on my own terms, right? I am not trying to be controlled by anybody. And it gives you this feeling of power. Now, looking at it from the outside, I probably look like a crazy person, and I'll freely admit that.
That's why we don't give a shit.
I know, but I was having this conversation yesterday with a friend of mine. It's probably done me more harm than good because I don't play the game. But whenever I feel that sense of the game creeping in, right, especially in any industry, whether it's corporate, whether it's photography, whatever it is, when I feel like I have to kiss an ass or play a game, I'm instantly against it. There's absolutely no way that I'm going to just go in there and tell you what you want to hear. I'm almost going to try to be contrarian just to see what your reaction is, right? Just to get a little bit of a rise out of you. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if that's a generational thing or maybe I'm just an asshole. Like that could very well be, right?
That could be well too, but you know what? There's something for everyone. Like I love an asshole, so I'm like, I'm endeared to you. But there's definitely no. I'm not. I'm probably not as rebellious as you in that sense. But I'm okay with it being that if I'm playing a game, but I'm well
Right.
aware of this is the game I'm playing. So I kind of take it more as a challenge. But I'm well aware that I'm playing the game. Like
I love that.
I'm not pretending to be anyone else, but I am going to play the game just to my advantage.
What's next for you? And I'm not putting you on the spot in terms of like, give me your 1, 3, 5 year plan. But I know a lot of folks change every couple of years, right? And they just kind of get bored doing what they're doing. For me, it's a major life shift about every 7 or 8 years. Are you at any point like that where you're thinking forward and saying, you know what, maybe I want to be just running the business and not shooting, or maybe I want to get into underwater photography like you were talking about and put Boudoir in the back burner. Where do you see yourself kind of heading? What pulls at your gut to be like, oh, I want to do more and more and more of that?
So, yeah, I definitely want to continue to grow in the workshop,
Mm.
hosting workshops. I want Austin's a great location. I have a great studio. It also feels very private. It's in the outskirts of Austin. And I would love to be able to host more intimate workshops like that, where it's just, 10 to 12 people and
Mm.
one instructor. And I think it's a great setup. So I would love to host 4 a year of those. Another thing I have in the works is, well, not in the works, but this is one of those things that I told you I start obsessing about. And I started obsessing about this like 2022, I think, about us potentially living part-time in Majorca. So my husband is from Scotland. So whenever, often obviously we want to go see his family, it's a long ways and we always go to Scotland and it's always cold and rainy. So we learned very quickly that if we book a trip to Europe, anytime we booked a trip to Europe, they could meet us wherever we are. And so that has become the goal now. So they will, different times, sisters will come, dad will come. And so the goal we have our youngest is graduating high school in 3 years. So we'll be empty nesters and we can start looking at potentially living part-time in Mallorca. And I would love to continue to shoot over there. And I don't know exactly what that would look like, but that's part of the reason why maybe I'm interested in water in photography, but it's just been like an obsession. I have this idea in mind of what Mallorca could look like for as partly living over there. So yeah.
Write it down in your little idea book. Make it real.
Oh, it's
Right.
it's ingrained. It's in here. Like I visualize it every day.
I love, love, love that. I don't see a lot of people at this point. It feels like everybody's just on a hamster wheel these days and that they're not really planning out like we used to 2, 3, 5 years, right? Setting goals the way that we used to. It feels like people are just trying to like, what day is today? Today's Tuesday. All right. I'm just trying to get to Wednesday. And so hearing that you've got this plan, hearing Majorca, good Lord, please host a workshop out there. Give me the link. I'll be there in a heartbeat. But having that goal, do you find that is something that inspires you every day? You're like, oh yeah, no, I'm doing this because we're going to make this a reality. We're going to have this happen. And it goes from being less of a dream to more of a concrete goal, right? Does it feel like a goal, like this is absolutely going to happen? Or does it feel a bit out of reach?
Well, I'll tell you something. I don't know what it is about me, and maybe it is down to the fact that I was, raised in a pretty privileged setup with my family, and I went to study in Italy. Like, who did that? In 1996, like nobody did that. And so for me, dreaming and scheming and like thinking of big, big, crazy dreams, it's just like I'm not intimidated or I don't shy away from it. That's like just always been part of my life. And I came back from Italy and then I wanted to go back to Europe and I somehow landed a job that was opening up offices in London. Like that just all these things have happened in my life. So I just dream big. I love dreaming big. I just think that the moment I feel like I'm not dreaming or I don't have something I'm super excited about, I can't. Like I just have to shake something like I in my life. So I either quit something or I join a new workout class or I do something crazy because I just don't work that way. I can't can't do it. So I would encourage everybody to just think of a crazy dream and just don't let it go. Like you don't know how it will work out. I just have that always those visions in my head and I have no idea how it's gonna work. I had no idea that when we bought this house, we bought it as a foreclosure because the neighborhood we live in was way above what we could afford. And I envisioned that the house would look differently, that we would have a swimming pool. Had no idea how we would afford all those things. At the time, I was not shooting full time. So I homeschooled and we were living on one income. So you have to have those big dreams so that you make space as and when the opportunities come. Yeah, I don't know how else to put it. Yeah, it doesn't feel that big or crazy to me because now it's been 3 years, so now it feels super normal. We actually went to Majorca a few years ago to look at, what is it like and how do we feel about it? And we'll probably go back and start looking at, what city and where. So yeah.
I love that you're focusing on the what, not the how.
Yeah.
A lot of people get stuck in the details of the how. Oh, I want to have my own business, but how do I do it? How do I set up a business? How do I get this stuff going? Instead of just focusing on the what, and the how kind of shows itself. That path is, like you said, not linear. And how do you get there? Who knows? But if you focus on the what instead of the how, you can at least keep that goal there. And then it's small steps every day.
Yeah.
Right? That compound interest, you get there, and then suddenly you're there. You've got your villa in Majorca and you're shooting underwater and you're hosting workshops and just living life as an international traveler. I think I love it. This has been amazing. Where can everybody find your stuff? Website, Instagram handle, podcast, address? No, not address. But where can folks find you?
Yeah, so Valentina Portraiture on everything. If you can spell portraiture, then you're already ahead of most people. Valentina.portraiture on Instagram is my handle, and Valentina Portraiture on LinkedIn, Facebook, website, alldifferenttthings.com. So yeah.
I have so enjoyed having you here. I'm so glad we had a chance to catch up. And
I know.
I don't want to wait another 3 years in a pandemic to do this again.
Yeah.
So if we can just schedule a Zoom maybe in the next 6 months, that would be fantastic. Because I really do want to keep up with what you're doing. I love the passion and just the commitment that you have to yourself to make this all work and to help your clients see themselves in a different way. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And the service that you provide is incredible. Your work speaks for itself. I don't have to blow any smoke anywhere to look at your work. You can see just how gorgeous it is by going to your website and following you on Instagram. I want to see what else you come up with as the face of your brand. I want to see you doing TikToks, spinning plates, or lip syncing, or in a dance battle with somebody. It's going to happen. I guarantee it.
I will be the face of my brand, but I will stay authentic. So I don't know that I'll be dancing or doing any of that, but I love it.
Valentina, thank you so much for being here. Hang here for just a second. I will talk to you soon, and I can't wait for people to hear what you have to say. So thanks again.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's been a delight.